Adaptions is sometimes always a good thing. Well, I think it's always a good thing, to be honest with you. So I think it gives us the time as coaches to be really innovative about what we're doing, look at our systems and see how we can kind of automate what we can delegate within our business. So, we just got to be a little bit productive with what we're doing.
100%, man. I think for a lot of people, especially with us, who sometimes I think a lot of personal trainers who get into it, they're not like purebred entrepreneurs. Like it doesn't come naturally to them. So when they're forced to change like this, it really weeds out the people that were built for this and the people that maybe were doing it as a bit of a hobby more than anything.
100%. Like I think that's the thing. I think it teaches you a lot of resilience. This whole process that we're currently going through, and trainers who are kind of in it just for the sake of not really there to add value, but just for the sake of just doing PT as a job. Yeah, I think it's gonna be an eye opener for them. I'm telling you now. Whereas coaches who are really invested in adding value to their coaching and their clients, they're gonna find other ways to be able to incorporate that into their programming or
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, I'm pretty excited to see like what comes out of this because, even just looking online at the moment, just the amount of content that's being pumped out, it's stuff that no one ever thought would come to, like before this, I never even had like home training stuff. I never bought it because I always had free gym memberships. So, like having to really look at, how to do it without all that stuff, man, it's a lot of fun.
It's the truth. Like, I was probably the coach who never was a big advocate for home workouts, because I'm so
dude, I've always
a compound
I'm still telling my guys now that I train. I'm like, look, I'm going to be real with you. Like, I freaking hate it. Like, I'm not. You won't be catching me doing like just 5 kilo dumbbells. Like, I'd rather just wait a couple of weeks and we'll come back to it. But I'm willing to facilitate. I'm willing to make it happen for you. But yeah, you won't be catching me doing a lot of that stuff.
It's the exact same with me. Like, I'm willing to make this happen for my clients and give them something because this is definitely a fragile time for them. So, if I can provide some sort of value for them to kind of, definitely help them with their mental health, with their anxiety, being sedentary. But in terms of, for me, to be honest with you, like, I don't know, like after, lifting compounds for a while, it's just really hard for me to get my head around, like I got to do this home workout and do this. But for the clients, I'll be there for you.
Yeah, exactly, man. Well, like, I'll help keep you sane, but like, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I still haven't worked out my bit.
Someone's going to have to help me keep me sane.
Yeah, man. I think we've already. This is going to be a great podcast. So I want to take a step back because I want to introduce you to the rest of the people that are listening, and for anyone that doesn't know you. So this podcast guest is actually quite a special one because during my contest prep, I was watching him like a hawk. I was looking at every single post he put up. Like, I was watching because we were actually in the same show doing ICN Victoria Season B in 2019. And so I was watching you like crazy. And you were one of the benchmarks, to be completely honest with you. And look, at the same time, yeah, looking at you and, looking at the amount of time and money you've invested in yourself as far as certifications goes, as far as the coaches that you brought on to get yourself to stage, and more importantly than both of those things, the time, man. Watching you like from where you were before and how strong you were and how much weight you had to gain to get to a point like that. And to see you come down and do it with such grace and, real, I don't even know the right word here, like, the technique, it was so technical and you were really looking at every single intricacy that you could. And yeah, it was so cool to watch. I'm going to quickly, before I let you jump in, I'm going to go in and just list off some of these certifications that I found that you're holding right now because, man, it's just incredible stuff. We got Cert 3 and 4 in fitness. We got our Precision Nutrition Coach Level 1. We got an Nutrition Program Design Specialist, JPS Advanced Body Composition. We've got our FMAs Level 1, 2, and 3. We have Muscle Mechanics Program Specialization. We have Australian Sports Performance Master Coach, Blood Analysis, Muscle Nerd, Stress Management. We're talking about thyroid. We're talking about insulin, trigger points, neurological based programming, and doing biochemistry as well. That takes a lot of time to actually bring all up together. And I couldn't only imagine what your programs look like, man. And it's an absolute honor. It's an absolute honor to have you on, man. So welcome, Munya. How you doing?
It's Munya, by the way.
Munya. I knew I was gonna. Do you know what's funny? I was like, just before I was about to start this podcast, I was like, man, I better like actually ask because like I'm gonna get it right. And look at us now.
All the time. Yeah, but people just call me Moons. But hey, man, it's a pleasure to be on your show, and it's pleasure to be just talking about fitness with you. You know, because thanks for going through a lot of that. You know, a lot of courses that I've done. But to be honest with you, just like yourself, I'm just truly invested in being the best coach I can be, and I'm just really grateful that I found something which I am so passionate about, because it is really effortless for me to train my clients and to upskill, because I am genuinely really interested in what I do, and always trying to find new ways and new answers to how can I improve my systems. You know what I mean? Like, even with all the courses, and you said how interesting the program will be, like, to be honest with you, even after going through all the courses, it just always brings me back and makes me realize how important the basics are. So one thing we'll talk about here is it's just really mastering the basics. And I don't really do anything too complicated, you know what I mean? Like, yes, I might have a really in-depth understanding of this, and we can go into bloods and etc. But it always comes back to this person just needs to move more, eat less, or this person just needs to do a little bit more output, or this person's having bloating because of this food is causing a digestive issue. So we can go into all this stuff, but I just love this, man. I love coaching, and I'm glad I've got this job.
Yeah, man. I love that. And you know what, like, that's one of the things that I love about, what you preach, what sort of some of your philosophies are, which is keep it simple. I think a lot of people can get so far with their physique, with their, emotional side, if they just keep it simple and get good at the basics, get a nice little morning routine going, have just specific times for exercise, keeping steps at a certain, in a sort of range, not even on a specific amount. And like you said, I think just the basic concepts as well, and understanding why you're doing what you're doing. I think that's so important. And, I think with a lot of my guys, I spend a lot of time on the why, not the what. I think a lot of people can succeed. If I gave sort of a cookie cutter program, there's a lot of people that could get benefit out of that, but it's about the people that stick to it long term and get the long term results, are the people that understand why they're doing that style of training, and so that they can put their 100% effort into it as well.
And the thing is, like, sometimes I feel like there's just too much information out there. Like, when I started training, there wasn't all this social media. So we had to rely so much on, like, what we're doing with our training, and kind of making adjustments based off the results that we do get. Whereas now people are getting so in depth where they're complicating things so much. People just don't know where to start. And at the end of the day, and this is why I always preach, it's important to do this yourself. You need to train yourself. You know what I mean? And the reason why you need to train yourself, because you will understand what it is that you need to be doing right now. You know what I mean? And if you're constantly analyzing and collecting data on what you're doing, you understand what adjustments you're going to make.
Yes.
Training is one of the things I always preach is, like, it's principles over methods. Once you understand the principles, then you have variables, which your clients are going to bring to the table. So you are manipulating those variables based on the principles that you've learned, which you've implemented yourself to get the desired results. So, and yeah, like, once you understand energy balance governs your body weight, there you go. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's gonna.
You're literally 90% of the way there.
Yeah. So that's why I was like, listen, train yourself, measure what you're doing. You know what I mean, and then make adjustments based off that.
100%. And yeah, everything you said there, it's just so important for, and like you said, there's so much information out there now. So it takes a couple of hours of YouTube. It takes a couple of hours of reading through some blogs, or, through some of the great people that are putting out content, even on your favorite platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. There, if you're following the right people, then you can get so much information, or at least, get that direction to where you should be going. But I just think a lot of people, like you said, it's information overload sometimes, and you hear one person say one thing, you hear another person say another, and you just get lost in this whirlwind of almost like influencers and people online, like, battling against each other, even though they're sort of preaching the same thing, which is, we got to drop the calories if we're talking about fat loss.
And the thing is, like, since there's so much information, people don't like simple. And the thing is, when people don't like simple, there is some sort of magical formula to get the desired result. Like, in order for me to lose weight, I need to do all these things. Or for me to put muscle, I need to try so many things. But in my understanding, it's like, you do the basics well. If you do the basics well, you become proficient at them. You become proficient at the movement. You can generate more force over time. You get stronger. You build more muscle. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this stems from like how you build. It's like building a wall. You know what I mean? Laying one brick at a time, understanding, okay, so I've done this, now I can move on to the next step. But now people are just jumping ahead. Once you jump ahead, you lose sight of like, maybe all I need to do is just eat these foods for a very period of time and train for long periods of time. But like I said, patience is just such a difficult thing now. It's just like we want it now. So we search so much, but like, what is it can I do in the next 4 weeks that can give me these results? And now I'm like, there's nothing, you know what I mean? Like, if I've been training for
there's nothing.
Like, yes, you can build habits and things like, which would definitely obviously help push your results further forward in the long run. But in terms of what you're going to get out of like a 2-week or 4-week this, and even with all that, even though I might even push people to even trial like 12-week phases with me, but this is just for me to add value and to sell long term. Like I always tell them, after 12 weeks of doing a phase, I'm like, listen, now that we've built these habits, now we've got you eating a certain way, which is definitely sustainable and you can adhere to it. And now we've got you getting a little bit stronger. Now we need to do is make another goal, which is another 12 weeks. And we just have to accumulate time. And over time, yes, you will get that physique that you want, but it's definitely not something that, if it was quick fix, come on, would it really be?
Everyone would be shredded, man.
Yeah. If it was easy, everyone would look amazing.
Yeah. If it only took 4 weeks, man, everyone would be walking around abs all the time. And that's literally my motto. And that's consistency is key. Consistency is the only thing that's going to get you there over time, because something I think there's a big disconnect with people is there's no end goal. People think that once they get to a number, on the scale, that's it, done and dusted. They can just maintain from there on in. And it just doesn't work like that, man. Like it takes hard work to not only get to where you think is your end goal, it takes just as much hard work to maintain it. And the odds are, and I see this because I get people to those weight numbers that they're asking, and they're still not happy. They're still not at a place where they're actually like, you know what, and look at themselves and be like, oh, you know what, I'm happy. It's always, I think I could lose a little bit more off the stomach. I think I could just do a little bit more of this. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. I personally love that. And to be honest, I think that's what bodybuilding is all about. It's that constant improvement of the body. But I think people have to be very self-aware that it is a process that if you don't love it, and if you don't enjoy going to the gym and finding ways that work for you and train for you, then it's very unlikely you're going to reach that body that you're looking for.
And the thing is, I'll be honest, even when people say like, listen, look, I need to get this certain weight, people don't actually care about the number. And even when I have a client come in, they sit down with me and they be like, listen, I'm 65 kilos. I want to get to 60 kilos and have abs, right? My next question is always like, cool, what if we get to 60 kilos and you don't have abs? Then they're like, oh, I want to get to 55 kilos. I was like, okay, so listen, the number doesn't actually matter. It's the result.
Exactly. It's funny because I actually do the opposite of that. And I turn around to, if someone says to me, they're at 65 and they're like, I want to get to 60 with abs. I turn around and say, well, hang on a minute. What if we were able to stay at 65 and get you abs? Would you care? Like, would you care if the weight didn't drop, but I was able to get you a 6-pack? Would that matter to you? And they're like, and every single person so far has been like, no, I can be whatever weight I want as long as I have as long as I look good or I feel good when I look at myself in the mirror.
It's the misunderstanding that they think that the weight is a number which they need to get to order to have the look that they want. But once you start explaining to them, like, listen, this is, like you said before, this is long term. This is about enjoying the process. And we'll talk about this later. Like, once you fall in love with the process, the outcome will be there. You know what I mean? And the thing is, like, even when we step on stage, and this is where people forget, like, yes, we do get the result where we get lean, but like what we learn along the way, that is something that you keep forever. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing about, the intangibles, like understanding the diet, the consistency, the mental fortitude that comes with it. You know what I mean? Like this is why, like, bodybuilders, I always say, have the potential to be so successful in their business. You know what I mean? Because they have the ability to diet down and be able to adhere and get to an extreme result. And when it comes to working on your business, that requires less time. Like bodybuilding is 24 hours. It's sleep, it's nutrition, it's training. I'm talking about if you're working on your business, what's that, about 2 hours a day? I was like, you can do that, but it's the inability for like a lot of people who compete to transfer those skills, you know what I mean, and enjoying the process and understanding, okay, cool, I've learned all this, how can I apply this to other areas of my life? So I guess it's all about the process. Couldn't agree more.
Everything's processed, man. And look, like you said, we're gonna dive into that because some of the things that, and I think I want to talk to you about specifically in comparison to some other guests so far, is that science of hypertrophy and how people can, put on muscle not only in the gym now, but during this time. What are some of the main things that we're going to have to make sure that's happening? Sort of like the non-negotiables, and then some things that we can manipulate to make that happen. But before we even get there, I really want to talk about, your competition season, because if I'm correct, that was your first season when you did it in 2019 season B, correct?
Yes, it was. It really was. Yep.
Dude, tell me more. Tell me everything, because I did one in 2018 season A, and yeah, I loved it. And going through the second time, it was actually, for me personally, I found it tougher and to really stick to the process because it felt so similar, and it was a lot more more mind games because I wasn't just following it I guess religiously. I had my coach, and it was very hard to just follow it blindly when I did it the first time, and then to do it so similarly again the second time. I actually found it really tough. So tell me a little bit more about your first time going through, your coaches that helped you, what you did. Give me it all, man.
Okay, so I'm gonna go a few years back and tell you how this whole process started with me as well. So
Yes.
Before I even was coaching, I was actually studying engineering, and basically I did a PT course just in the whole summer semester just to learn how to train myself. So, and then after I learned how to train myself, I was like, okay, cool, I'm going to come into the industry. Not because I actually planned to be a coach for a very long time. It's just because I just really enjoyed the aspect of being able to make progressions with my own physique. And then within my first year, I did fitness model, but it wasn't really anything that required any self-awareness. It was just kind of like one of those times when you lean and then you just step on there, right? And then after I was like, okay, cool. Like, I competed, but the problem is when I focus so much on how I'm looking, it's very subjective, and I need to focus on something objectively. And that's how I started with my brand, Precision Performance Coaching. And then over the 6 years, I went through a massive 6-year bulk. So I went from 60, I'm not even joking, I went from 68 kilos and I went to 94 kilos. You know what I mean? And the one message I want to send across to people, it wasn't just simply like going and putting on weight. Like I got my squat to 220, deadlift to 250, bench 170. So I got stronger in the whole process, because I was like, what, in terms of like, yes, it's good to focus on aesthetics, but like once I started focusing on performance, the byproduct of performance was my physique. And then I did my first powerlifting comp. And then, which I actually won, which I was pretty happy about after entering my first powerlifting competition. And then from that...
Wow, man, congrats.
Thanks, man. And then after that, me and Jacob, so I was currently coaching with Jacob from JPS, and he was just like, okay, look, listen, we've done this powerlifting comp, and I definitely wanted to step on stage to do my first bodybuilding show. So we planned it out from November. I would compete in next September. So I was like, okay, cool. So I've got a bit of time. Let's just see what I can do. We'll see what I've built over these 6 years of just, gaining and getting stronger, etc. And to be honest with you, I probably needed to manage expectations a little bit more, because at this point, like after gaining for 6 years, my body fat got to like 24%. You know what I mean? And like, I guess I probably had a little bit unrealistic expectations of like, okay, listen, I need to get striated glutes in this, right? So this is where it was kind of like...
Were you lean leading up into this? So like before you actually got into the powerlifting side of things and you put on that massive bulk, and you went into that hard training, did you naturally stay lean, or did you find it hard to stay lean?
I naturally stayed lean. I never made an emphasis on putting on weight. It was one of those times when you only care about your abs. You know what I mean? You got to take the selfie, you got to upload. So it wasn't like me really putting an intent of like, listen, I need to put on weight, I need to get stronger. But then this happened after I did the fitness model show. I was like, listen, it's not enough for me just to focus on, how I'm looking. You know what I mean? Like I need to make things objective. That's why I'm so big on numbers and measuring how I'm doing. And then that's when I realized, okay, this is how I'm going to make gains. So I was like, okay, I'm 68 kilos. I need to get to 70. What do I need to do to get to 70 kilos? Okay, I need to eat this much food. I used to make the shake as well, which was like, we used to put like serious mass gainer, banana, oats, everything. It was pretty much like diabetes in a cup, right? And I used to have this.
I love it.
I used to have this every day. And I was like, okay, cool, I got to get to 70. Once I got to 70, I was like, okay, how's my strength going? Okay, I'm getting stronger. Okay, so I'm only benching about 110. Okay, I got to get to 120. So I made these little small targets along the way. And I was like, okay, if I'm getting stronger and I'm accumulating more body weight over time, I'm like, I'm in the good direction and I'm most likely putting on muscle mass. So I was probably sitting at probably used to sit about maybe 11, 10% then. And then I gained for those 6 years. And obviously at that point afterwards, there was probably, I could have maybe utilized more mini cuts, etc. But it was just a point where you just want to put on as much muscle mass. You just want to do that bulk. You know, everyone's.
Yeah, man. Your goals changed. You know, it wasn't about being lean at that point. You know, it was just not a priority.
Yeah, and then over time I was like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna get stronger. So I got to about 24% body fat. So no, once I got to that point, I did my powerlifting comp. I was like, you know what? I want to get striated glutes because it's actually something I've just never done before. Like I've never had good glutes. So, and that's when me and Jacob made a plan. And that's when we kind of like, okay, this is where we want to get to. This is what we're gonna do along the way. And this is where it kind of hit me a little bit because as I got leaner, I realized how much leaner I had to get. And that's when things started to click in. Yeah, that's when things start to click in. And that's when I realized, oh, okay, well, you know, I'm getting leaner, but at the moment, I'm still nowhere near where I need to be. And this is where things became a little bit problem because once you start to become desperate in a comp prep, you are in trouble. You know what I mean? And that's like I started to rush down. That's when I like the excessive cardio came in. You know what I mean? Like I got to get the body fat off. And yes, you want to lose body fat, but if you're trying to get show ready, the goal is not to lose body fat. You want to retain your muscle mass. You know what I mean? And then
100%.
And if you want to retain muscle mass, that comes down to managing your stress levels. And for me, I was probably, you know, focusing a little too much on the output because I just wasn't lean enough. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. Like after going from 24 to 20 was easy. Getting from 20 to 15, it required a bit of work. Getting from 15 to 10, that was harder. But trying to get from under 10, that's when things were just kind of, that's when I was like, okay, listen, I'm not there yet. You know what I mean? Do I need to do a little more output? So I was doing a bunch of steps, doing a bunch of cardio, and even like looking at my blood work. You'll probably find this fascinating. My free testosterone, I think free testosterone is supposed to be between 260 and 740. My test levels were at 21. You see what I mean? So I was
wow.
Yeah, so I was, you know, putting so much emphasis on output. I was driving up cortisol, and cortisol and testosterone are derived from the same hormone. So if you're constantly going down the course, creating excessive amounts of cortisol, lower stress hormones, what's going to happen? Well, your testosterone is going to suffer. And it's not that being lean is the problem. It's what you have to do to get there that causes issues for people. You know what I mean? And that's where, like, and that's where I've learned from like future comps that I'll do and with my clients. It's like, listen, it's not about just getting to the number. It's just like you gotta be strategic in your way. You can't be desperate when you're trying to lose body fat. And for me, being at 24, I wasn't within striking distance. And you want to be within striking distance. Whereas now I sit at about 10 or 11, 12%. You know what I mean? So now I'm in a much better position. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm within striking distance because my body fat only got to about 8 as well. And even looking at like my liver markers as well, like ALT, AST, like my liver markers are supposed to be between 10 and 40. They were 75. So my liver would have to be working so hard to detoxify all the toxicity that was putting up from all the output that I was doing. So, you know, it was an awesome experience because I learned so much about, you know, okay, comp prep, you know, it's not just about getting lean, it's about, you know, how you get there, you know what I mean? About managing.
It's about managing all that stuff. Yeah, exactly.
It's a game of recovery. And that's all it is, you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, if you have to do extreme stuff to get to that result, obviously it is extreme, I do get it, but if you have to be so extreme in aspects where your performance is suffering, and this is why I base my whole philosophy on performance training, because my bench press was like, it was 170, and then I think after I finished comp, I was only like 110, so I lost a fair bit of strength. But it is all a learning curve as well, because at the end of the day, like, you know, obviously you are going to lose a little bit of strength because leverages are going to change, you're depleted, you're not doing exercise. But at the end of the day, like, you know, if you can maintain your strength, you're going to maintain your muscle mass. And how you maintain your strength, you be strategic in how you lower your calories and how much output you're doing, because your output requires recovery as well. Like if you're doing excessive amounts of cardio and your sleep is getting affected, you know, I mean, that's going to impede your recovery, which is going to impede your ability to perform. If you can't perform, you know what I mean, how are you going to maintain muscle mass going into a competition? And that was my biggest learning thing about this. Like obviously it was still my best physique to date. It was just awesome experience for me as well. But in terms of what I learned along the way, it's like, yeah, there's definitely things I want to improve for my future shows and things I can do better.
Yeah, man, that's I can't tell you how similar parts of our journey were, you know, because me personally, you know, like I've always found it hard to get lean. I've never in my life just walked around with abs. Like
Yeah.
the amount of time and effort and, you know, the things I had to do to get that lean were just ludicrous.
Yeah.
And so, you know, hearing that from you and knowing that, you know, you were struggling with the same thing, you know, it's crazy. And I think a lot of people go through that, because I think when it comes to bodybuilding, you know, there's usually two sort of avenues where you're coming from, and it's either you're pretty skinny and you know, you have this dream to, you know, look like the bigger bodybuilders and put on that muscle and look strong and crazy. And then we have the people that sort of on the other side, where they've always been stocky, they've always had sort of strength and muscle, and they're like, no, you know what, like I can look good too, you know, I'm not just strength, I can put on I can get abs, I can do anything else that anyone else can do, so let's go for it. And you know what, both have their challenges. And you know, I think working on being able to get that down and working on just that consistency to get on, either, because either way it takes a long time and it takes consistency. Do you think if you could change anything going through last prep, would you change anything? How important was this experience to your future contest preps?
Nah, this is my best physique today. Like I went through that because yes, I got as lean as I could, but there's always things you can do better, you know what I mean? But like, it's not like I'm going to look back and say, oh, need to remove this and I could have done this a little better. But at that time, that's all I knew, and that's all me and Jacob knew, you know what I mean? So this is what we wanted to do to get the result that we did. But moving forward, you know, one thing I definitely would like to do is, like, I would love to be leaner. You know what I mean? Like being 24% body.
Start leaner.
Yeah, start leaner, 100%. What you have to do, like I always say, like, it's not being lean is a problem. It's what you have to do to get to that point that causes issues. And I mean, like we just talked about my testosterone levels, because if you can't manage your stress levels, like we go on about as well, you know, the end result is not going to be what you think it is. So yeah, starting a little bit leaner. And this is what I've done with my athletes and with my clients. It's just like, you know, we might be essentially a little bit aggressive towards the start because I need them to get that body fat off. And I always say to them, you need to be striking distance, you know what I mean? Because if you're not, and you're getting to the end and you get to the point where you become desperate and you're going to push the envelope and be a little bit more extreme, well, that's also going to cost you, you know, recovery. And if that costs you recovery, it's going to cost you muscle mass, and it's going to cost you a good result at the end. So moving forward, I'm definitely going to start my prep at about 10 to 12% body fat. I do have goals in getting a lot stronger as well. But yeah, like if I'm a little bit leaner, guess what? You know what I mean? I don't have to diet as long, and that's the problem with naturals as well. The longer we diet, the more issues we run into. So, you know, if I can start a little bit leaner, I can, you know, not diet as long. I can incorporate more, you know, more the diet breaks, etc. But in terms of that, yeah, I was pretty happy with the experience I went through, but there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, look, and I think one thing to touch on as well is body fat set points as well, where, you know, if you spend too much time at a specific body fat, you know, that becomes your new normal. You know, your hormones start to regulate at that level. You know, that's where everything feels normal to you. And when you go over that, you feel weird. And when you go underneath that, you feel weird. So the longer you can stick at sort of a body fat, now, and this is something that I'm trying to do at the moment, which is, I normally sit at around 20% body fat. You know, that's sort of normal for me, and I don't really like that. So I'm taking this time now to, you know, take, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6, well, however long it takes really to sort of remove some of that visceral fat, remove some of that fat that, you know, I've just accumulated over a long time of I guess not really taking care of my body and just doing things that, you know, any sort of teenager would do. You know, I sort of stuck with that. And even when, sorry, I'm walking up a massive hill right now, this is crazy. You know, so even when I did lose all that body fat, and I got to, in the first show, I would say I was close to competition shredded. I could get a little bit leaner, but even when I got to that point, man, it was just way too easy to actually put it back on at the end of it.
And I guess the question,
you know what I mean? Like it literally just clicked on.
And I guess the question people always ask is, okay, you know, what do you think of your 6-year gaining phase or 6-year bulk? What do you think of this? I was like, listen, like I was younger, you know what I mean? And I wanted to put on a lot of muscle. And yes, I did accumulate a lot of body fat, but I also accumulated a lot of muscle mass and a lot of strength. You know what I mean? So during that time,
and muscle mass that you would never have gotten if you didn't take that.
100%. And the thing is, when you start your lifting career, you know what I mean, your ability to build muscle is a lot higher than your ability to accumulate fat mass. But it's not the same after you've been training for like a certain period of time. Like, obviously what I did for the first 8 years of training is not the same approach I'll take for the next 8 years of training. You know what I mean? Because I'm an advanced trainee. You know what I mean? I don't build muscle at the same rate that I did when I started my lifting career. So now it's about being a little bit more smarter and being more strategic in my approach. You know what I mean? Like, what do I do now? Like, what do I manage? Like, obviously, yes, I do want to build muscle, but obviously the surpluses that I use will be a lot smaller because my rate of gain isn't as fast, as well as my strength gains aren't going to be as fast. So you learn along the way, and that's what I say to people: it is not a bad thing to make mistakes. You know what I mean? Because you need to make mistakes along the way in order to get better. So I had a lot of body fat. What would I do next time? I would improve on this. Or what worked? Okay, well, I accumulate a lot of strength. How is that going to help me? Well, that's going to help me retain muscle mass. It's all about being aware about what you're currently doing and making adjustments to get better.
Exactly. That's one of my favorite words right now, man. Self-awareness. Because if what a lot of people do is, like you said, there's nothing wrong with making mistakes at all. I make mistakes constantly with my training, with anything. You know, it's not about that, but being self-aware that there was a mistake made and what impacts that made to your physique, to your mindset, to whatever you're trying to get better at that point in time, knowing that was detrimental to that is huge. Because if you don't actually understand that is not getting you closer to your goal, then you're going to get stuck and you're going to do it again, and you're going to really inhibit your progress.
And that's the biggest thing you can take away from bodybuilding is it teaches you self-awareness. It teaches you how your body responds. It teaches you what happens when your calories get low. It teaches you what happens when you do excessive amounts of cardio. So if you're learning all this, like, okay, next time I'm going to do things a little bit differently, because at the end of the day, if you do the exact same thing, you're going to get the exact same.
Absolutely. And look, I think this segues perfectly into, you know, what do you do now for hypertrophy? So, you know, you've gone through this gaining phase. You're obviously an advanced lifter, so it's going to be very hard for you to put on extra muscle than what you get on. And you know what? No one really wants to look the same way they did the time before. If you plan on competing again, you always want to look better. That's the whole aim of the game. Every time you step on stage, it wants to be better than your last showing. So how are you going to plan that for yourself personally? Any tips or sort of the main things that you would give to your specific clients that are just main goal is hypertrophy? And then we'll go into a little bit more about sort of like how we can sort of do hypertrophy and stay a little bit leaner. But right now, like, as far as hypertrophy goes, what do we need to know?
Okay, first of all, like, my whole philosophy on training is focusing on performance, all right? So I always assess where I'm currently at. So with my clients as well, I say, listen, the future version that you aspire to be is a version that is capable of more. So we need to become capable of more. So if I'm doing like chin-ups, if I'm doing bench press, I'm getting stronger for rep work. You know what I mean? So if I'm doing dumbbell presses, I'm making sure, okay, listen, if I'm doing a set of 10 on 40 kilos, that becomes a set of 10 on 50 kilos. So my whole philosophy on training is that we need to get stronger, because if we're getting more strength, because remember, people always forget that training means getting better at something. So if we're going to train, we need to focus on getting better. And what we're getting better at, we're getting better at lifting heavier weights as well, right? So that's what I'm focusing on with my training. And this goes across a broad range of exercises. So this isn't just like the compounds. I'm talking about, like, you know, the leg press, the lunges, the leg extension, all this. Like, I always monitor what I'm doing.
The wrist curls?
Yeah, everything. I'm talking about anything. Calf work, everything. I was like, listen, you're getting stronger across a spectrum of rep ranges. So your 3, your 5s, your 30s as well, right? And while we're accumulating more strength per reps, what we do is we're sitting in a slight surplus. Like, this is different for everybody as well, but obviously, like, I'm focusing on gaining about 0.5% a week on scale weight as well. But I'm making sure that I'm accumulating more strength along the way.
Awesome. So what is the benefits of aiming for sort of like that 0.5% a week? So for most people, you know, that's really only anywhere between 200 to 600 grams. You know, it's really not a lot of weight. What's the benefits of doing it that way versus people that I speak to a lot that are trying to go for a kilo a week, or, you know, like, and just try and focus on just weight?
Okay, this is really individual dependent. Like the reason is because I'm trying to minimize the amount of fat gain as well while accumulating more muscle mass. But here's the thing, like, if somebody is like potentially like a hard gainer, you know what I mean? Like, you could definitely emphasize them gaining at more of a rapid pace, you know, whereas for someone like me who's a bit experienced, I'm definitely going for more of a slower approach as well, because I'm trying to manage how much fat I accumulate. But also with the problem with gaining like a kilo a week, you know what I mean? Like, listen, you don't gain muscle at the rate that you want. you gain muscle at the rate that your body allows you to gain. I know it's probably gonna like,
Yeah, so
I
true.
know a lot of people are gonna be really upset to hear that. But they're like, oh man, I just want to gain all this muscle. I get it as well, right? You know what I mean? But we're gonna take this slow because keep in mind, like the faster you gain, the more fat you accumulate. You're eventually gonna have to diet that off anyways. You know what I mean? So you might as well kind of go slow. You know what I mean? Focus on like getting stronger at the gym. Yes, you want your weight to slowly trend up as well, but like it's all just focusing on the trends. Like even if someone does gain a little bit more body fat, as long as it's accumulating to better performance in the gym, I'm actually okay with that. You know what I mean? Because if someone's getting stronger, that's the thing. Like people like even when people say, "Oh, listen, I'm gaining this much weight," is it equating to muscle mass? And I always say, I don't know. No one knows. The DEXA scan doesn't know. No one.
Do you feel better? Like, do you feel good? Do you feel strong? And then, like, if not, so then don't worry about it. Like, allow that strength to accumulate.
Yeah, allow that strength. Like, if your weight's slowly trending up, and your chin ups have gone from body weight, and now you're doing 3 plates for like sets of 6. You're pretty much you can be reassured that you're pretty much putting on some muscle mass along the way. You know what I mean? So that's what I always say. Like, if you're equating more to strength gains and your surplus, things are doing well. And this is the same if even if you're trying to lose weight. You know what I mean? Like if your performances are dropping rapidly, and that's why I say we need to go slow when we're trying to lose body fat as well, because we're trying to hold on to what we need, and what's going to hold on to our muscle mass is our performance. So as you can tell, my whole philosophy is like, listen, how is your performance going? You know what I mean? Is your performance going up and your weight's trending up? Well, then we're on the right road. You know what I mean? But if you're accumulating a kilo a week and your bench is 100 for 4 reps, and you've gained 4 kilos and it's still 100 for 4 reps, well, what are you putting on? You're adding weight which doesn't produce force, you know what I mean? So you're probably accumulating a lot of body fat.
Yes, that's a great way to look at it. Yeah, you're not putting on weight that is actually producing more force. Yeah. That's a really good little tip for a lot of people out there. If the weight is going up, but you're not seeing those progressions in strength or in anything else, then yeah, sometimes, you can sometimes put it down to like an off day and you're not feeling 100%, but if it's consistently not going anywhere, but the weight is going up and, I think people are in a little bit of fairy world as well. Sometimes you can just straight up see it in the mirror, man. Sometimes you can just look at yourself and be like, yeah, okay, I'm letting go a little bit, and you just, like you said, man, it's all about self-awareness. You have to know, you have to be looking at yourself and actually making those decisions for yourself.
And this goes back to how I kind of base everything on principles. Like I was thinking, okay, cool. Like, if we look at like a marathon runner or a sprinter, it's like, look at the difference in physiques, right? You know what I mean? What we have to do over time, we have to generate more force. We have to increase tension over time, all right? So what do we define that as? So, force is equal to mass times the acceleration. So over time, you need to be, increasing the load on the bar in order to increase the tension, which is going to give you the desired result of increased muscle mass. How you set that up based on your frequency, intensity, and volume doesn't really matter, as long as those methods aren't as important as the principle. You know what I mean? Frequency is just a way of organizing your training, which allows you to be able to continually make progressions. Volume is another way of accumulating more work, you know what I mean, more sets over time, you know what I mean, which is obviously going to lead to more tension, more force being produced. And when it comes to intensity, obviously, if you just add load to the bar, you're going to produce more tension over time, which means you're going to increase your muscle mass. And that's where I base it. So when clients come to me, or what I do with my own training, they say, oh, listen, what frequency do you use? I was like, I don't know, what frequency which allows me to make the most amount of progress? You know what I mean? Or how much volume are you doing? Well, it depends. Like, what can you recover from? If you're doing more and it's not equating to more better performances, then you're just accumulating a lot of junk volume. What we want to do is we do want to do more volume, but yeah, it needs to be equating to better performances, getting stronger over time.
Yeah, 100%. And I think as well, it's also, you need to be looking at what you can get you need to get the most from the least.
Yep.
You can't be trying to find it's not about maximum recovery volume. It's not about how much can you do and feel okay. It's about how little can you do and see the results propelling you forward. And this is why I'm telling people a lot. I'm like, dude, if you're really struggling to motivate yourself when it comes to home gym, if you're really struggling to maintain your weight, just start with walking. just start there and see what happens. Just start and, check your weight and see if it works. And if it's not enough, we adapt from that. But everybody can walk. Everybody can take that time out of their day to make that little change and then assess it. See if it's giving you the results that you want. And if it's not, you've created that routine, you've created that habit. And then from there, you can change what you need to.
Add volume when you need it. I completely agree. You know what I mean? Don't just go in there for the sake of adding volume. If you're performing off the base amount of volume that you're currently doing and you're getting stronger, you're recovering, don't have to change anything. You know what I mean? Like once you kind of get to a point where you can't keep accumulating more weight on the bench press every single week. What we can do, we can add another set. You see, I mean, there's different ways to progressive overload, but yeah, leave those tools in your toolbox for when you need them.
Yes. Okay. So obviously there's going to be a lot of listeners right now that don't have the bench press, don't have a lot of other things, and I'm actually pretty, I'm actually pretty surprised. I'm seeing a lot of people shine through this time and, make use of what they have. I'm actually really excited and really proud of, the people that I'm surrounded by and just how much they're putting into it right now. So for the people that don't want to lose their gains throughout this period and they maybe only have access to maybe some same weight dumbbells that you can't really adjust too much, maybe a couple of resistance bands and just the real basic side of things, what's some tips that you could give them to maintain that muscle / grow muscle during this period?
What I've been doing is with a lot of my clients and a lot of consults that I've done, I'm saying, listen, we're going to do what we can with what we have. People need to understand that obviously this is not an optimal environment for us to be like pushing the gains, you know what I mean? But we can do something to maintain or even slightly make a little bit of progressions as well, right? So what we always say to my clients is like, listen, send me a photo of the current equipment that you do have. I mean, once they've sent me a photo of the current equipment that you do have, I've been designing programs based off that and saying, listen, this is what we have. So you have a set of dumbbells, you have a set of resistance bands, okay? So how can we focus on making progress with this equipment? So for example, what I've been doing with myself, I've been using dumbbells and adding resistance bands, obviously to increase the tension. You see what I mean? So I've been incorporating that every single week. So one thing I can say to the listeners is that, listen, search around for the equipment that you do have, whether it's like, if you have your cat, if you have a bottle of water, if you have anything, you know what I mean? You need to make do with what we got. And this is what I've been saying to people. We need to be that mindset, like, listen, we cannot become a victim of our circumstances right now. If we just sit there and get upset, you know what I mean? We're only going to be adding to the problem. We need to become part of the solution. So how do we find a solution? Look around for things that you can use to keep yourself active. You know what I mean? And even, yes, we can talk about optimizing body composition with dumbbells and resistance bands, but let's talk about other things we can prioritize, which is also the other benefit of training is like the mental side. You see what I mean? Like, the endorphins, your mental health, you know what I mean? Like, that's the benefit of moving and doing something. You know what I mean? It's going to put you in that positive mindset, because if we this is the problem with this problem with the situation right now. It just creates an environment for people to put on a lot of body fat and get in a state of depression, because if they're constantly sitting down, they're more sedentary now. You know what I mean? Since they're more sedentary, no one has any idea how long this lockdown will potentially last. So that's going to cause anxiety. You know what I mean? Anxiety can lead into depression. If people are going to get anxious and depressed, what are they going to do? They're going to crave sugar. You see what I mean? So they're going to constantly just sit there and eat. So let's make the best of the situation. Look around for gym equipment that you can have, and reach out to a coach who can help you design something and keep you accountable so you can continue to make progress.
Oh, I'm so glad you're speaking my language now, man. And, I think I'm sort of throwing these ideas out there because I know that's what people want to hear about, but I'm so glad that people like you are shifting the focus away from hypertrophy and fat loss right now. Me personally, I don't really think that should be the main goal for a lot of people right now. I think just being able to find a way to maintain your weight / strength with the tools that you have, and then focusing on that mental health side of things, because look, like you said, at the end of the day, depression and a lot of the mental health side of things is going to be a massive factor during this period. And like you were talking about before, when it comes to stress, which we didn't really get to touch on, it's, when you have more stress, you have more cortisol, and that cortisol puts strain on the immune system, which is the last thing that anybody needs right now. So, it shouldn't be about creating more stress. It should be about doing things that make you feel good and then building on top of those, so that when the gym reopens up, whether that is in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 6 months, it doesn't matter. But when that time comes, we are strong, we are ready, we have worked on our weak points, and and we have the routine, so that it's not a matter of spending, you know, the first 2 months of the gym reopening trying to get back to the weights that you used to lift, or trying to, you know, just get the routine and the habit back. It's already all there. That's what I want people to focus on. I want people to be ready for that gym to reopen and then focus on the gains, because this is a great time to bring down that volume that you've been doing. For people that have been training 5, 6, 7 times a week, how can you're never going to be able to create enough tension and enough volume with the equipment that you have to continue the rate of growth that you had before. So don't focus on that. Don't let it happen if it happens. If you can do that and you're the type of body that can just grow muscle from, you know, literally nowhere, then more power to you. Like, you know, you've done amazing, and, you know, you've been blessed with great genetics. But 99.7% of people, it's just not the case. And so if you focus on that, you're going to get annoyed, you're going to get frustrated. And if you're training for results during this period, I would advise you to not. I would advise that to make it, you know, sort of a, you know, much more of a supplementary side of things, and really focus on why you started training in the first place. It's because you freaking love it. It's because it's a part of your life.
And that's the thing as well. I think there's so much made in our industry about aesthetics. You know what I mean? Like, and then people would just forget about, you know, there is so much psychological benefit to training. You know what I mean? Your mood, like, you know, consistency, dedication. There's so much that people can kind of focus on, and this is the time to do that. It's just like, you know what I mean? Like, if you, yes, obviously there's only a limited amount of overload you can produce over time, but like at the moment, like, how is training going to make you feel? It's going to put you in a positive headspace. What else can you focus on? You can focus on nutrition. We just talked about the immune system, right? Constantly feeding your body processed food is going to produce a lot of inflammation, which is obviously going to trigger the immune system as well. So your immune system is going to become compromised in that way. So there's so many things that people can be doing right now, you know what I mean, which can be putting them in a good position for when the gym does open. It's like, okay, listen, I've stayed on, and this is what I've been doing in consults. It's like, listen, what can we do with your food right now? Okay, too easy. Okay, so we can focus on your caloric intake as well, because I'll be talking about energy balance will govern your body weight. So we can eat certain calories as well. Okay, so carbohydrate intake. Okay, so how much carbohydrate intake do you need at the moment based on your activity level? Well, you're not being very active as well, right? You know what I mean? What nutritional food choices are you making, which is going to help you optimize how your body is feeling, how your body is recovering, so you don't put yourself in a state where your immune system is compromised and you are getting sick. So yeah, I completely agree, man. Changing that mindset, focus on like, I just got to look a certain way, I can't increase the weight. I was like, listen, there's other things we can definitely focus on in this period which can help propel us forward.
Yes, and look, I think this is a conversation that I think all people should have with a coach. How important do you think having a coach is during this time, and sort of as a general blanket statement, how important are coaches when it comes to physique goals, mindset goals, and just having a coach for training in general?
I think everybody should have a coach. I don't think anybody should train themselves. You know what I mean? Like, there's too much trial. Like, listen, if
too many variables.
Like doing things on your own, there's too much trial and error. Why not just pay somebody who can show you exactly what you need to get done? Because one thing you can't get back is time. So if you spend I've had people come to me who've been training for 10 years, and then when I tell them they're a beginner, they get surprised. I was like, listen, you haven't made any progress in 10 years. Like, you know what I mean? You haven't done anything.
Yes.
So like, if you paid a coach like 9 years ago or something, when you started, you would have made a lot more progress over that time. So I think, first of all, everybody should have a coach, because like, that's why I have a coach, which shows you how important our job is, because everybody needs that accountability. You know, everybody needs someone saying, listen, because you need a different set of eyes to look at what you're doing and say, listen, this is, because what you think you're doing and what you're actually doing is always two different things. You know what I mean? And we always fall into into habits which we've always constantly done over time. You know what I mean? We don't want to change anything. We become comfortable. You know what I mean? But if you have someone saying, listen, we've been doing this for a while, it's time to change up. Listen, the body fat's getting a little bit high. We need to dial back. So I cannot put more emphasis on this. Listen, if you don't have a coach, get yourself one. Someone who can help you through this time now. You know what I mean? Someone who can say, listen, get you in the right mindset so you don't fall into anxiety and depression. Because someone who can write your program, so at least you have someone to keep you accountable and how you're progressing. So that's I agree.
Yeah, man. And like you said, it's not always about someone showing you what to do, but opening up these conversations, because people are still, you know, I talk to people that are still, you know, asking me whether nuts are good for fat loss. You know, like it just, there's so much disconnect between sort of general training and then if you're actually training for results.
Too much information.
And I think, Yeah, man. I think coaches are needed to
Yeah.
bridge that gap for people so that they are getting the most
Yeah.
out of the least, and they feel like, I think one of the most important things when it comes to training is you do have some sort of goal that you're training for. You know, when I talk to people and they sort of come in for a consult, and I ask them straight off the bat, you know, what's the goal?
Yeah.
Like, what are you training for? And they just look at me sort of blankly, like, I'm just sort of doing it because I like it. And I'm like, cool, that's so good. But, you know, how are you going to, what do you actually like? You know, what do you like about the process, so that we can create something that's going to be long lasting for you? Because people that don't have that end goal, or, you know, sort of just like that big 10-year, you know, what you sort of want to see at the end of that, a lot of the time you see it go up and down, and, you know, motivation goes up and down, and it's very hard to stay consistent and motivated.
I completely agree. Like, this is a time where people don't have a goal, and if you don't have a goal, what's gonna happen? You're just gonna gravitate off, and then it goes back to what you're saying about being simple. And I completely agree with this, you know, because when it's simple, it's easy to implement. And when people, since there's so much information, like we talked about earlier, people are getting confused. And when people become confused, they don't action anything. And that's why you go to a coach who can kind of sit down with you and say, listen, if you want to lose fat, we need to do this. We need to stick to this as well. Because, yeah, I think people are just getting so lost in what they need to do right now. And there is no end goal. And since there's no end goal, there's no process that's been put into place for them to progress forward. And if the person doesn't feel they're progressing forward, they get stagnant. So yeah, it leads on to a host of things. So one thing you can do with the coach is that they can help you, identify what your goal is and what you actually want.
Yes, exactly. A clear mind is what's going to make people get to where they want to, and be able to just, it's not even about getting to where you want to in a time like this, like we were talking about before. It's just about feeling like you're doing the right things during this time. Because I know a lot of people as well will, if they're not, because they're so used to training, and, you know, let's, for example, they straight after work at 4 p.m. they go and train, and now they're going to be thinking about that time the whole day until they do something to make them feel like that they're going towards, and they keep that routine. And, you know, actually getting some structure behind, all right, well, now that everything has changed, your routine has changed, your wake up time has changed, your food habits have changed, what is the new normal for you? What is going to be right for you in this current situation? Because everything that you did before this is basically thrown out the window. Until it's time to go back into normal routine, none of that actually matters anymore. You're a different person now. You're spending more time sitting, you're spending more time sleeping, you're spending more time doing all these things that you never had time for, and that changes you as a person and changes your actual
and that's true.
physiology.
It's like, listen, if your lifestyle has changed, you need to develop, and I've said this in my consult, you need to develop a way of eating, you know what I mean, and a training regime which is based on your current lifestyle. You know what I mean? So, and that's why I say, like, diets and training should be constantly changing, because our lifestyles are changing. You know, we need to, as people, we need to be adaptive. You know what I mean? We need to be adaptive to the situation and say, listen, what can we do now? What can we do now to improve? What can I do with my food? What can I do with my training?
Yeah, 100%. And this is a great place to sort of tell us a little bit more about your current offerings at the moment. So from what I've seen, you've switched completely to virtual/online PT. Tell us a little bit more about that, man.
I'm doing online coaching at the moment. So all I simply have to do with my current switch them all onto the online platform. But what I'm offering at the moment is just straight online coaching for people. And then there's also an option where they can do virtual training, where I take them through a PT session based on the current equipment that they do have with them. So I'll design a program based on the equipment, and I'll take them through that workout. And then there's also, I don't know how long this will be, like, I'm also doing outdoor coaching, the one-on-one, where, like, I've actually got gym equipment which I'll take with me to an outdoor area as well, where I'll kind of take them through a session which I kind of designed for them.
Yeah, wow. So, and I have to commend you for how quickly you were able to make this change, more from a business standpoint, and just how fast you were able to deliver something that was actually going to be relevant to your clients. And you changed your website and you put everything up and you said, this is how it is now. This is what we're doing. And this is how I can deliver. And I think that's so important, because people are looking for leadership during this time. People are looking for people that are sure of what they're doing and know that they can continue to lead people to whatever their goal is, fitness-wise.
This goes back to what I was saying about being adaptive. I was like, listen, I could just sit here and say, listen, this is not a good situation. I can't do anything. I can't do that. But I was like, listen, okay, what can I do to help my clients out? Because there are people out there who need us to reach out to them, who don't know what they're doing. And I've been, if you're a coach and you're listening to this, please reach out to people and ask them how they're going, because there's a lot of people in a situation where they don't know what they're going to do. They don't know how they should be eating. They don't know what they should be training. This is where we can come in, and give them systems. You know what I mean? Give them like options where they can either do virtual training, they can do outdoor training, they can do online PT, somewhere where they can have some sort of accountability as well. Because this, like I said before, like this is a fragile time for all of us, and we need to stick together. We need to find ways we can help each other out, get through this current situation that we have.
Beautiful stuff, man. Well, I wish you all the best with your online PT. I think there's so much value to be brought, more than ever. So before I ask my last question of the day, tell us where people can find you, Munya, and the best place to contact you.
Munya_coach. You can find me on Instagram, and you can also find me on my website, which is www.Precision Performance Coaching. I have blogs, I have articles on there. I also have client results. So if you click on each client, it will actually show you what I went through with each client based on what I did with their diet and the training. So I always try to give a lot of free information out there, and definitely tell people what's going on with my clients and what currently have moving forward as well.
So important, man. And yeah, I've actually gone through some of your blogs, and I was doing a little bit of reading, and yeah, so much information, so much stuff out there that, like you said, maybe doesn't it's the kind of stuff that you usually leave to the coaches to deal with and just naturally adapt into your program. But if you're interested in that nitty gritty stuff, and you want to learn more about stress, and you want to learn more about, the strength and progressive overload, that's a great place to go. So my last question for the day, Munya, if you could give one piece of advice to our listeners to look and feel their best, what would you tell them?
About it. I would say fall in love with the process, not the outcome. You know what I mean? Like, once people fall in love with the process, people fall in love with the process, they have a sense of direction where things are heading. They're going to make improvements within their lifestyle to make sure that they're reaching their goals. That process is going to develop self-awareness, which is going to obviously make them feel better because it's progression in their life. So yeah, the process over outcome. That's one message I can give to people. Process over outcome. That should be on a billboard or something.
Man, this has been an absolute pleasure. I'm so grateful to have you on, and just talking to, like I said, it's on a few of my podcasts so far. It's just amazing having people that are in the industry, in our area. I'm talking to people that are a stone's throw away from me, and there's just so much knowledge, there's so much information, and there's so much story and emotion behind why we're doing what we're doing. So I'm absolutely honored to get your story out there, and I wish you all the best when you do these times.
Appreciate you having me on as well, and we'll definitely have to do it again sometime. I'm always happy to talk more about it.
Oh man, yeah, you'll definitely be back on, man. This has been super informative. I can't wait to see what the listeners think.
If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask, man.
My man. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much, Munya. You have a great day.